What did I teach you?
You are no commute. No, you're a number one.
I can't hear you.
You are no commute. You're a number one.
Peace, everybody. Can everybody hear me? If so, just type it into the chat. Excellent, excellent. Happy True Year to everybody. We made it. You know what I mean? So many people didn't. You know what I mean? So much is going on. Another great day in the apocalypse. Thank you guys for all of the born physical wishes, birthday wishes. I appreciate it. Honors to everybody else, all of the Aries that's celebrating right now. You know what I mean? I definitely give thanks for, my time in the grind, because a lot of my peers that I came up with, a lot of them didn't make it this far. So inshallah, I really appreciate you guys' support, continued support over the years. It really means a lot. Y'all could be doing anything right now, but y'all here, so I definitely appreciate it. There's so much going on. So before I, bounce tomorrow for our little jaunt, I wanted to make sure we got something in, you know what I mean? So we could split the difference, Praise Allah, KL. Happy born physical for your 50th. That's definitely an achievement, man. That's half as, you know what I mean? Like we half a century, you know what I mean? So we definitely seen a lot come and go. And who's to think that we would one day be the elders, you know what I'm saying? I remember listening to or watching, DVDs and things like that of these elders, who at the time was like, younger than us, you dig? And then just years later, actually being around them. And then years after that, actually being, welcomed in by them. And then, now years after that, I'm now, basically am them or we are them. So I definitely want to give thanks and praise to the creator for, setting the path and achieving the math to even make something like this possible. So honors to us all, you know what I mean? Indeed, Brother Santiago. Brother Santiago said, gratis sumus pro hoc novo secluro vitae pro ordina naturale pro lege universae et pro luz que nos docet. So basically, we want to just give thanks, you know what I mean, for the new cycle and the order in which nature has brought us into the universe, into the light of gratitude, or something to that effect. Islam 224, indeed, man. Yeah, yo, so we definitely here, as I said, there's always more going on than is not, you know what I mean? So we definitely want to give thanks and praise. Yeah, we should start learning as much Latin as possible. You know what I mean? Technically, they, a lot of Moors refer to it as Moorish Latin, but I would just say it's Latin, that we as Moors have been speaking for a long time, which tended to come into being around the time when those of us started to fall from the noble nature and started to have to create a language that would be able to bind the egregores and the homunculuses that was being created around us. That's why when you watch movies like Harry Potter and stuff like that, they always speak certain Latin that could basically bind whatever entities or demons that was trying to come out, stuff like that. So we had to create something in that fashion that would be able to do that. So Thanks and praise to those ancestors that gave us the weaponry, the verbal weaponry to be able to do that. So, we definitely want to give honors to that. Anybody have any questions about anything before we get started? Excuse me. Anything before we get in? Yes, indeed. It's definitely true here, Brother Richard. Honest to that. Um, Also, rest in peace and rest in power to any of the young brothers and sisters that may have lost their lives in this current theater of war that these demons have created to get people caught up and to go along with the present culling of humanity that these niggas is trying to implement on everybody. Honest, brother Danny. Honest, Danielle. I really appreciate it. Everybody caught up in the theater of war, in this fake war. Excuse me, it's not really a war at this point. It's still an armed conflict. Or I would say a light skirmish. Um, it hasn't really gotten into a full-blown war yet because a lot of the combatants are not really established enough for war, which we'll get into. I hope everybody was able to go on and I believe I have the war manual on the app, but if not, I'm gonna check and make sure I get it up there. But if you have it, you can download it. Brother KL said, did you see the Roblox creator got locked up for using the platform? Yes. And that's also because a young buck who was playing Roblox got tired of being harassed by all the pedophiles on it. So he basically set up a sting situation to be able to ping and find all of the perpetrators for that type of stuff. So much so that he was having 100% success rate on catching the pedophiles. So Roblox, the company, sent him a cease and desist letter telling him that he can't use their site to prey on people. Essentially, because Roblox itself was established to, try to induce children into pedophilia. You know, I remember when my son first got into computers and he first started playing it. I used to, me and his mom used to be watching him, and as he was playing it, we noticed that there was older people playing with him, which to me was crazy. You know what I'm saying? But thankfully, he was never, enticed or got involved in any rooms where people like Jeffrey Epstein was in and all of that playing. You know what I'm saying? So I thought it was crazy that grown people would be playing like that, but apparently they didn't, and because they were basically setting it up as a means to procure children, unfortunately. You know what I'm saying? So we always got to watch out and be vigilant when it comes to things dealing with our children because we live in a grooming society. So we got to make sure that we stay on point with that. So yeah, I'm not surprised he got arrested. Um, all of them are. Whenever you're above, when you're in the millionaire slash multi-millionaire level and all of that, 10 chances to one you down with that stuff. That's just what it is now, and that's what it's always been. It's just now that the files and things like that have come out, and when we talk about the files, I mean, let's keep it real. They haven't really put out all of them. You know what I'm saying? Like there's still like 3 million files still missing that we still haven't gotten, and the redacted aspect of that as well. You know what I'm saying? So you got to make sure that sorry, you got to. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Okay. You got to remember that they're gonna give up just enough to let everybody know that it's out there, but we can't really do nothing about it, which is not true within itself. All we have to do is do what they've done in Italy and Spain and places like that. We don't want a bloody, if you don't want a bloody revolution, then you do a paper revolution. And that means you just don't participate in anything dealing with them in any of their state legislatures or any of that. You just dead it. You just stop participating, meaning stop doing all of the things that they want you to do to maintain them. So if they using all of the tax money to do that, and there is no law that says that you actually have to pay taxes, you know what I mean? Especially if you haven't done a 1040 and things like that. There's nothing that they can really do. And because they're trying to downsize and flip everything into a token, into some sort of digital apocalyptic type of registry system, nobody wants to participate in that. So they're going to have a hard time doing that, especially being that the empire that they've established is already cracked. Like this nigga already put out basically a surrender the other day, talking about how much they can't really do no more and they need other people to come in and make it happen. And he basically capitulating without capitulating. You know what I'm saying? And they know that if they actually do try to initiate a draft, that the War College and the Pentagon war game analysts already told them that's not going to work. Not only is it going to it's going to set off some sort of civil disturbance, some sort of civil thing, because people ain't going to send their children to die. They're just not going to do that. And the people that do are already under mind control or whatever. And it's not enough of them to be able to foster a whole army. Plus the fact that 70 to 80% of these people that they will be trying to get in, both male and female, they're not fit to serve. You understand? They not gonna make it through basic training. These niggas got hip problems. They all got drug problems. These kids got emotional problems, which a couple of years ago wouldn't have been a thing. But because you dummied down and you de-testosterone so much of the populace now, you can't just amp up the testosterone because you don't put out a draft saying that this is what we need and we need y'all to go and fight and die for these people. Like, they're not gonna do it. You're gonna get them out there and they're gonna rebel. They not gonna, and there's not enough jails to hold everybody that draft dodge and shit. Like they're, if they can't stop illegals from coming in and out the country the way they doing, how they gonna force niggas to go across the water to go fight for them and then give them guns and then tell them, okay, now go and fight these people you don't want to fight? It's not gonna work. You understand? It's not only is it not feasible, it's not even it's a security risk for them. Because now that you done gave these niggas guns, how you know they're not going to turn the guns on the people that's trying to send them to the front lines to do that? They're not going to do it. It's not going to work. And then it's not like Vietnam. You see what I'm saying? Like in Nam, they was able to keep people in doing tours and shit like that because they could give them drugs. You know what I'm saying? You fighting in Iran. You understand what I'm saying? First of all, the topography is not inducive for any type of land joint. The closest that they could do is maybe take over this part of Iran they call the island. That's where they be moving a lot of their oil and stuff from. But the problem with that is you might be able to take it, but you're not going to be able to hold it. You understand? Like, because to hold it, you're gonna have to take over the coast. You means you got to get closer into the coast, and you can't do that because them drones is going to just start picking y'all niggas off. You know what I'm saying? 20 at a time, 100 at a time. It's not feasible. It was never feasible. You understand? Then remember, Bibi dead. Netanyahu, Benny Milikowski, that nigga's dead. You understand what I'm saying? This nigga's dead. The whole upper echelon of the Israeli, what do you call them niggas? The Israeli war cabinet, minister cabinet, all them niggas is dead. You understand? The shit you saw the other day with this nigga giving the conference where he allegedly talking to a room full of people, but you can't show him in the room with the people. You got to cut to the people asking a question, then go back to the AI with this nigga. Then this nigga's whole arm is like his sleeve is like there, and then it's not there, then it's there. It's like the AI glitch is bad. Cause what they doing it like when he first died. So that means when I first reported this nigga was dead, he was dead then. So every instance that you seen with that nigga after was them trying to find ways to train the AI to make it look like he was alive better. So every time we commented on a post where they showed him talking or walking, he was like, "Oh, look at this nigga with his fake arm. Look at this nigga with his fake leg. How is his ankle on the other side of his on? How is his right ankle on his left foot?" When we was doing that, they was then taking those and using those as prompts. You see what I'm saying? To switch to make sure that the AI could produce a better product. So the last straw was this shit the other day when this nigga was giving this whole speech talking about how Genghis Khan is better than Jesus and all this other type of shit. You understand? Like this nigga is dead. Like like this man is dead. You understand what I'm saying? Like he's dead. Like it's not even a conspiracy. No, he's dead. Okay. So because he's dead, they have to create all of these AI prompts to make us think he alive when we know he's dead. You know how we also know? Because his son, who was tweeting every day, his son was tweeting like every day. Then boom, March 8th come, which again was the Ides of March, which was really funny. The fact that this nigga died around the Ides of March after he was seen walking with a book written by this dude named Bernard Strauss called Rome Against the Jews, or the Jewish War against Roman War against the Jews or whatever. So the Ides of March is when Rome fell. So the fact he died around then was crazy. So then his son was tweeting crazy. His son had a podcast at one point. So he tweeting crazy. Then the next thing you know, all his tweets just stopped for 7 days. For those people that don't know what that means, there's a thing called sit and shiver. That's when somebody important, like in your family, die. You got to literally sit down in one place and then mourn for like 7 days straight. So for the next 7 days, this nigga didn't have no tweets, right? Then afterwards, he started tweeting all of these old pictures of this nigga, like the type of shit you do on a tribute tweet, on a tribute thing. And I don't even have Twitter or Facebook, or Instagram and none of this shit. This shit people sending me. So I'm seeing this. I'm like, oh yeah, this nigga's dead. So now they trying to use what we are peeping about him being dead to try to prompt the AI to knock out all the glitches so that way he appears more alive. And not only is he dead, the nigga who was going to take over, he just died yesterday. They just killed that nigga yesterday. You know what I'm saying? So this whole shit is going down. Yes, Robert Mueller, they killed this nigga the other day. These niggas is dropping like flies, bro. They are killing these people. So again, remember I was telling y'all back in the days, I'm like, yo, this whole shit might be a setup to find a way to get these niggas from up under the occupation of the blue state small hat government that's been blackmailing these niggas. Because remember, the whole Mossad headquarters where they was holding all the compromise, all the blackmail, they bombed that shit to rubble. That shit is rubble right now. So unless they got that shit on servers or they got it on some sort of backup discs or whatever, all of that blackmail is gone. You know what I mean? Which is not cool because, but then again, we got the files, so it really don't matter. You know what I'm saying? Like it's still 3 million plus files that's still out here. They just track your boy Epstein's Fortnite because this nigga can't stop playing Fortnite. They just track this nigga. This nigga's still playing Fortnite. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like he's still active. You dig? But he ain't in Israel. I'll tell you that. That's what I told you. They saw this nigga the other day to the point where so many people seen him, they had to get whoever this double is of him, telling him that his name is Palm Beach Pete or some shit, which again is a code probably. You know what I'm saying? Because it's all fake. The goal is to break down the wall between what is real and what is fake to the point that none of us can tell the difference. That's the ultimate goal. The next goal is, again, to get us to understand that this whole thing is a wash now. It's all over. Because remember, the whole upper echelon of the small hat government is dead. These niggas is out of here. So at this point, they don't have no means of really recovering. They keep hitting these niggas every day, and the United States can't really do nothing about it, which might be the plan. That's what I'm trying to say. This whole shit might have been the plan to sucker them into it and then get them to the point where they need more munitions and then just pull out all of a sudden. And now they got to fight the whole shit by themselves. The other plan is for them to use Iran to destroy the Dome of the Rock so that way they could get rid of that shit so that way they could start to build their fake temple. But how you going to build the temple on the rubble of the mount of the Dome of the Rock, right? When you still being bombed. How is that? How they gonna do that? Unless Iran is in on it. And remember, and again, I'm not a fan necessarily of Iran neither. You understand what I'm saying? Like the child marriage and shit like that is still okay over there. So it's crazy that they calling this nigga Jeffrey and them pedophiles when these niggas is having 60, 80-year-old men marrying 12-year-old, 10-year-old girls. Like that's crazy. You understand? That's crazy. Then they say, oh, well, the Kurds, they're going to use a ground invasion of Kurds and these things. The Kurds has been getting their ass kicked by the Iraqis, by the Sunnis, by everybody. The other part of this that we not understanding is that when we was little kids, they had this thing called OPEC, right? And OPEC, when they first started to flip the whole petrodollar shit and they started to deindustrialize the United States, they used the Arabs over there who are really Jews. They're really Jews too. They not even real Arabs. All them niggas is Jews. All them niggas is Khazarian Jews too. That's why they look like that. That's why they all inbred and got to marry in their families like that. Because all them niggas is Jews too. You understand? None of them niggas is real Arabs like that. Which is what they say the problem with Iranians is. Because see, Iranians are ethnically Persians, which are different than pale Arabs. So the ethnically Persian, what do you call these niggas? Iranians are Shia, right? And the Shias and the Sunnis been slaughtering each other for centuries. You understand what I'm saying? Because they both following pagan idol worship to a degree. The Shias be doing flagelations. They be whipping themselves bloody the same way the Catholics be doing it. You know what I'm saying? Only difference is they're clear on who their God is. Right? Yes, they're all, thank you, Daniel. They're all Sabbatian, crypto Jew, Khazarian, Frankist Fabians. Fabian nihilist pagans. Yes, that's what they all basically are. So they down with that shit too. Only difference is this whole thing is about different ancient gods going to war with each other. Santiago said, every prompt you write, every revision you push, every judgment you make, you are not just training the model, you are training you. You are the actual intelligence. Just be yourself and bend the artificial intelligence to the will of the user. That's the power of your moral science and your will, and you are the truth. Exactly. So once you accept that this nigga's dead, just to add camelback on what you're saying more, once you accept this nigga's dead, no AI, every AI version that they come out with this nigga walking down the street or chewing gum or drinking coffee, you're going to see it off top. You're going to see it off top. It's not even a thing that you got to debate. So when you see other people and they want to try to make it like this nigga's alive, that's when you know who the agents are around you. Because anybody trying to say this nigga's still alive is most likely an agent, whether they know it or not. You understand? So you don't even got to argue no more. You just know this nigga's dead because they wouldn't be going this hard to make you think he was alive. Because when the nigga was alive, like I said, this nigga used to come over here with pounds of dirty laundry from all of the ritual sacrifices and blood and semen and urine and feces and stuff they've been doing to destroy kids and rape kids and all that. They bringing all of that laundry over here to have this nigga, to have the Americans do for them. This is how disrespectful and crazy, psychotic these people are, and how much they like to symbolically rub it in your face. So now that this nigga's dead, you understand what I'm saying? Like the whole situation is now turned on its head. They can't really keep it going no more because really nobody's in charge. Every time they get somebody new, you see what I'm saying? It's a wrap. He's gone. They kill him. You know what I'm saying? So So to me, the whole thing is a wash now. Also, like I was saying with OPEC, it's really getting into it because what I also think was happening was they were trying to get out of the deal that they made with the OPEC states with the oil, with the Saudi Arabians. 'Cause remember, the Saudi Arabians was the ones that helped them with the whole um 9/11 stuff and all of that. You dig? Like they was working with them to do that. That was Mossad. That was Mossad and the Saudi intelligence and all of that type of stuff, right? So they was all working together with that. So they were getting to the point where they were starting to make deals to not do the petrodollar thing no more. So right after they said they wasn't going to do it, CBS do a whole expose all of a sudden on how these niggas was down with the 9/11 shit and all that. Y'all wasn't saying that before. Y'all was cool with them up until like 2 weeks ago, until they came out and said that they didn't want to do none of this. That they wasn't going to take, they was going to start taking the Chinese money and start doing the oil deals and everything with them. So now all of a sudden they gotta go. You dig? And now it's a problem. So now they're going to try to again make us believe, tell us what we already knew, that they was working with the Israelis and all of these people with the Mossad. There's a book, I'm gonna show it in a little while. I think I got it. It's called War by Deception. Where they was basically telling them, they tried to ban it when it came out back in the days, but they was been telling us that they did that. So now all of a sudden they trying to, get out the deal. So now they got to paint them as enemies now all of a sudden. So what I'm thinking is that they was basically using this whole situation as a means to destroy all the dependent oil Arab states that they've been working with. That's basically been in their pocket, helping them with the slave trade, helping them with the human trafficking, all of the porta potty chicks that was going over there getting defecated on and having to have sex with little boys and goats and all of that, all the influences, all that money dried up. All of those states were artificial states to begin with. You understand? All of those states were artificial states to begin with. None of those states have any agriculture. None of those states have their own running water. None of those states have their own political adverse infrastructure. So everything that you see in Dubai, the UAE, all of those slave states, those pale Arab slave states, because that's what they are, all of that was built off of fake money. Those aren't even real states. So the United States was basically shoring money into that as puppet states for them, as an extension, so that way they could bypass Israel when they needed to do little deals and set up rituals and all the other type of stuff they wanted to do. So that is now too expensive for them to maintain. So what better way to get rid of it and get that debt off the books as to have those states destroyed, because all of those states were proxy states that they basically just set up so they could put military bases there. They basically took, after Iraq and Iran, they went into these areas. This is going all the way back to Kuwait. Back in Kuwait times, right? When they first set up Kuwait, which was another fake illegal state, they went in there, did what they did, and then Kuwaitis went in there and started siphoning oil out of Iraq. That's when Saddam went in and invaded Kuwait, because they was low-key taking his oil. But they had already made a deal with the head devil, who at the time was Bush Sr. So that's when what's his name was trying to get out the deal and put a hit on Bush Sr. And that's when the whole thing went south, because up until that point, Uday and Qusay, who was Saddam Hussein's sons, they was boning Bush's daughters in them. When they blew up the palace and went in there, they found all this allegedly, they found all types of sex tapes and shit where Saddam's sons was having orgies and shit with the Bush daughters and stuff. So, once they found out he was trying to kill him, then that's when the whole thing went riot. And then by the time his son took over, that's when they went in and destroyed everything and then helped shore up the other Arab states. So they basically went into Qatar, went into the UAE, what would become the UAE, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, all of that, and then basically built their military bases and then had the Arabs build countries around the military bases. You understand? So those weren't real countries really to begin with, because they don't have no GDP other than the oil, and the oil and stuff was already promised through Halliburton to the United States. But now that shit got too hectic, they wasn't able to control it no more. So what better way to get it off your books than to have it destroyed by somebody else? But now it's looking like that this was the op from the beginning. You understand? So now all of the Arab states are standing up like, yo, how y'all just gonna leave us out to dry when you said that we had all these defense contracts and this and that? But the stuff they were selling them was fugazi. It wasn't even real. It wasn't no real weapons. There's no Iron Dome. None of that. All of that's fake. None of that's real. That's like when Reagan was talking about we going to Star Wars. We creating Star Wars. Remember he was talking that when we was in the 80s, when we was kids. They created the Star Wars defense canopy in space and all this other type of shit. That was fake. Where's that at? What happened to that? That never happened. That was fake. That was shit that they was just selling on paper to get people to funnel more money in so they could launder the money. So this was probably a way for them to do that, because the other side of the game is United States is one of the biggest oil producers in the world. Y'all know that, right? Y'all know that United States, the occupying government that's controlling America, right? We got to make the delineation. The United States fictitious corporation that's been occupying the government really since the Articles of Confederation, maybe even before that. Them niggas, they are the biggest oil producers in the world. Whenever there's oil fires or oil wells need to be drilled and all of that, where do they go? They go to Texas. They go to the Americans in Texas to do that. You understand what I'm saying? There's no traditional, nobody produced more oil than us outside of Russia. You understand? So typically, this whole thing was a scam to begin with, because they got us thinking that the whole thing is running on some sort of position. You need to pick that up.
Yeah.
You need this.
Yeah.
Running on some sort of superpositioning, which is really based on the fact that these people don't have no means of controlling what's happening. So now that the pale Arabs is waking up to realize that Iran is destroying the military bases, but in the same token, remember, they built the countries around the military bases. So if the military base go, that's a huge part of their money system is gone. So now they telling people, they trying to make it seem like all the oil and everything is coming from them. But I just told you, most of the oil is coming from here. Didn't they just take Venezuela? Didn't they just take Venezuela? Right. So what's really going on? So this whole thing might have been a scam to be able to get from out of Israel by giving Israel what they want, because they know they can't win a ground war against Iran. You can't do it. Now, this is not to say Iran is getting blown to hell. They whole infrastructure is messed up too. Not to mention the fact that there's still a lot of people that are not happy with the Islamic Republic. However, the Islamic Republic has never done anything towards so-called melanated Americans, us. Matter of fact, they've gone out of their way to say that they at war with everybody over here but us. You understand what I'm saying? So something happening. So this happened the other day. A crow, now this could have been staged or whatever, but a crow went and took the flag down, right? Off of the blue state, off the flagpole of the blue state. You know, crows represent the birds of prophecy, the blackbird, right? So there's that. So that went down. Plus the fact that, remember, all of this is tied into the worship of Baal, right? We understand that all of this is Baal worship to them. So Mother Teresa, one of the most prolific human traffickers in the world, Epstein and the rest of them, right? You got to understand they was all down with that. Matter of fact, the Epstein, remember I told you last week in the class that Epstein is not an actual name of an individual. That's the name of all the individuals that were funded that came out of Epstein, the Epstein province in Germany. That's why they tried to bring the nigga after he got bombed out, tried to bring him to Germany to get care allegedly, but then he fell into a coma or some shit, and then from the coma died. Now the other way we know this nigga probably dead is because they are notorious for keeping dead leaders alive. Like they had a prime minister named Ariel Sharon, right? He wound up having a stroke, right? He had a stroke and they kept this nigga alive as a vegetable for 8 years while they had doubles of shit walking around acting like he was still giving speeches and still in control of everything. You know what I'm saying? So they used to this type of subterfuge. You know what I'm saying? The very word sabotage comes from Sabbatean. You know what I'm saying? The very word sabotage comes from Sabbat, which is them. You understand? So as they say, when the enemy is doing what they doing, you gotta let them do what they doing. So when he said the whole thing about Jesus and Genghis Khan being better, that's another play on words because there's a whole eschatology that says that Genghis Khan was actually a dude named Prester John, and that was actually one of the descendants of Yeshua. You understand? So they're doing all of this type of eschatology, cosmogony work and ritual work to keep this whole thing going because again the slavery and all of that is slowing up. They're not having enough, so now they have to diversify their outsourcing. So now they're trying to set up shop in Argentina, they're trying to set up shop in Kenya, they're trying to set up shop in Ukraine again, they're trying to set up shop. So what they're doing, they're trying to set up a bunch of little Israels all over the place instead of one, because this one is being sacrificed, right? Because once the Iranians started burning Baal, you understand, that was the signal that everybody is now this is now turned into a war between gods, right? So you got Baal, who is really Yahweh, right? Who they also is fighting Zoroaster, right? Then they got Hubal, right? Then they got all of the demons, Baphomet, right? So you got US with Baphomet, you got Iran with Zoroaster, right? Then you got Israel or Pisrael with Baal, right? Then you got who else is doing? So you got all of these different gods. Oh, and then you got the Arabs who are worshiping Allah, but their Allah is really Hubal, right? Which is another version of Baal, a demon. So you got all of these wars fighting with each other. Islam, Santiago said the show Landman. Yes, Landman. Watch that show. It's a great show. One of the only shows with men in it. The show Landman will show you a portion of the oil we have in Louisiana, Texas, Gulf of America. Ancient name is Quagmire, right? Or Okihakti means white water. The Muskogee Hitichi. That's right. Name of the Gulf. Exactly. So all of this is these fallen gods, right? These little G gods fighting to see which one is going to come up on top. So as you can see, we're going to come up on top because the crow, the blackbird, also represents the old Moorish Empire. So we already taken the flag down. So it's pretty much a wash for all of them. You know what I'm saying? With all of this. But when we look into this, you got to understand that the reign of terror that these people have been doing over the years has been at a level of such depravity that something actually had to happen in order for people to really get what they were actually doing in places like Palestine, since the Nakba, which was the Palestinian night of broken glass, the same thing that they said that they went through when the Nazis and all came up. But remember, the Epsteins and the Rothschilds, they was funding the white Hitler and them people to help destroy the Weimar Republic that they themselves helped set up, which was the Sodom and Gomorrah of Europe at the time, that was destroying the fabric of the moral center of the so-called Europeans. Because this is a war against Europe as well. You understand? So they used to do psychotic rituals through the IDF over there, where they would murder the people, right? They would murder them. And again, this is all reported through the International Court of Justice, through the humane NGOs that was acting like they was reporting on this. These people was out here literally killing children. Because remember, the IDF is not really, they weren't really a army. They stopped really being an army after the 7-day war against the Arabs. And then they reverted to more of a paramilitary intelligence based army situation, because they had already destroyed Gaza and all that. So they stripped down the greater army, and they started to basically deal with Gaza as basically an open air prison. And in that, they would do like they would do in Escape from New York. They would see people trying to escape or do things, and they would literally shoot and kill them. And they basically traded people's lives as that. So because the soldiers weren't involved in any major war, they basically started to train the soldiers to ritualistically and psychotically murder the children and the women. So some of the things they would do ritualistically was when they would celebrate, right here, this is from Twitter. They said when they celebrate the slaughter of 18,000 babies and children, they then take their toys as trophies and upload the pictures to their social media. So whenever you seen them with little toys and stuff like this, where they would be taken in front of the tank, this was them after they would kill the children. They would take the toys and do that. Same thing, the genocidal selfie army. Israeli soldiers post for smiling selfies amid Gaza's ruins, bodies, and devastation. See that? This is the type of stuff they was doing. Now look, most of the moral army in the world constantly posing with pictures of themselves in the dresses and the undergarments of the victims among the women and the toys and the children that they murder, all while their funders pontificate to the rest of the world about human rights and how they're under attack all the time with people with no guns. So this is a ritual. Okay, this is what armies, sadistic armies, specifically ones that were dealing with the occult, would do. The Romans would do this. The so-called barbarian Vikings would do this, which I'm not necessarily sure, because a lot of those were actually melanated soldiers that they call Vikings, but that's another story, right? But they would do stuff like this. But we used to see this before. They was doing this in places like, remember when they was doing this? This is how you know that they was involved in all of these wars in the continent that you started to see happen. That when we grew up watching, we was like, how is these niggas? Because this is what they was doing. Give me a second. This is a form of mind control and dissociative identity disorder to keep the soldiers engaged in doing horrible, prolific acts against the populace that they're occupying, which goes against all the tenets of the rules of war. This is what they do. You know what I'm saying? KL said, cross with Aldous Hodge, the white chick that's his partner, that they made his love interest because the black woman he was with wouldn't give him another chance, is a former IDF soldier. See? Trying to humanize these niggas, right? Using the so-called black slave to do it. But that's because this is how they trained up a lot of these dudes. Remember in 96 when they was going through the wars in Liberia, where them niggas was dressing up in wedding dresses and dressing up in tuxedos and going out there shooting and killing people? This was all, a lot of them soldiers was trained by the IDF. When they was wearing all types of costumes, Batman costumes and Superman costumes, dressing up as wedding brides and stuff like that, that's what they was doing. Whenever you see the niggas in the dresses, right, and they start doing that, that's part of the mind control. This is how they start to destroy the mind of the participants, right? Not only hook them up on drugs, because what they would also do, they also give these niggas a lot of drugs, LSD and stuff like that. Remember, they're not fighting any real wars. They're just literally sitting there all day watching people go back and forth, and then they just come up with different things that they can do to pass the time. So eventually these niggas start going crazy, and they start just literally doing anything to maintain themselves. So this is some of the things it's doing, but it also has an adverse reaction because this is also justified by their religion. But the problem is religion does not assuage consciousness. You hear what I'm saying? Religion cannot dissuade consciousness because regards to what religion you are, regards to who you are, right? You know the difference between what is right and what is wrong. So when you're constantly doing evil, right? When you are constantly being told that what you're doing is evil by other people, but then you're in this echo chamber of the people you're doing the evil for, they out here trying to constantly gaslight you to tell you that you can do this because you're the chosen people, and you know this is your right because these people you're doing this to are animals and shit like that. You understand? That weighs on a lot of people, not every, especially soldiers. Because as a soldier, you need to believe in the murders that you're committing. You understand? You need to believe that this is a holy thing that you're doing. You understand what I'm saying? So when you don't have that justification and you know that what you're doing is wrong, this now backfires on you. And that's what's happening to a lot of them. The IDF has one of the highest suicide rates of any army in the world, if you didn't know that. You know what I'm saying? Look, military response. The IDF has acknowledged the crisis, the officials noting that thousands of soldiers are receiving mental health treatment. The military has increased by a number of mental health officers, they call them K-bands, for active duty soldiers and reservists. Reservist struggles. A significant number of suicides and mental health issues are reported amongst the reservists, who have all been called up multiple times and spend long durations in combat zones. Because these ain't combat zones. There's no combat. You fighting niggas with rocks. So you out there machine gunning children. Then they encouraging you to go in there and rape their mothers and then blow them up and then take pictures with their toys and put on their bras and their dresses and shit. And then parade around and then post that on Facebook and post that on their little group chats and stuff like that. And then make jokes about it. And then what? And then you got to keep doing drugs. You got to keep doing stuff to be able to dissuade yourself that what you're doing is not insane. And what happens? You start to go insane because remember, you're also a part of a religion, right? That is really about Baal worship, because what they are is not, they're not Jews. They're Sabbatians. You understand? They're Sabbateans. They don't even believe in none of that. The Jew thing is just a cover for them. That's a cover story for them. They really believe in this. That's why when they burned those statues of Baal, that really stuck in the craw of the officials that really know what they're really dealing with. Their God forced them into doing something. Baal is like, look, y'all ain't gonna let these niggas burn statues of me and not do nothing. So go in there and make something happen. And that's what they had to do. Yes, Ed Gein, see, another Sabbatian, right? Crypto Jew. See, what does it say? The Israel society can't hide its genocide in Gaza anymore. More and more IDF whistleblowers are talking now, and they are psychologically damaged and spiritually annihilated by what they have done to the native Palestinian population in Gaza. Zanland Docs did a very good job getting some of these on record. This is a small tip of the iceberg. This is the other side of the game. You got thousands of these soldiers rebelling, not fighting. So what they got to do, they got to show you that they having raves in the bunkers. You know what I'm saying? But they're not showing you that the bunkers, the sewage system and all of that is destroyed. So they're literally rooting in filth in there. They can't. There's no sanitation in there. So all of this partying, all the shit you seeing, that's just one side of the game. Like this, they're being bombed into the Stone Age, and their own government has set them up to die, to do that. So that way they could usher in the destroying of the Temple Mount, so that way they could usher in the coming of their so-called Messiah, who to the rest of us is going to be the Antichrist. And remember, none of this shit is real. None of that is even real. This is all shit that they themselves have made everybody believe. You understand? They don't even follow the Torah. Remember, I just told you, they're Sabbatians. They reject all of that. Their God is Lucifer, or who they refer to as Satan, or whatever you want to call him. The fallen one, the little horn, whatever you want to refer to it as, that's what they worship. That's who they're trying to bring about. So the more evil they do, the closer they believe that they are to bringing him into fruition, to force it to do something. That's how little they think of their own God. This is what they believe. This has nothing to do with hating Jews or anything like that. Nobody hates Jews. You know what I'm saying? Not really. Unless one did something to you specifically. And we can cite what groups of them do. The welfare state, the child sacrificing, and this, that. Like, yeah, but that's not all of them. That's the ones that's doing that. But the ones that's doing that has now made it where you can't trust any of them. And they did the same thing with us, right? So one melanated person who do something bad from America, then don't that make all of us look crazy? See how that works? Now they've done it so much to us, now it's done to them. Yeah, everything is mockery with them. Everything. Like I said, they're showing you a dead man. They telling you a dead man is talking to you on TV about what his future plans for the country is. That's how deep in the matrix niggas we are right now. You understand? And people are watching this nigga, watching his sleeves disappear and act like he's actually alive. So those people are gone. You got to understand, those people are gone. You got to have the presence of mind to know that this is all fake. Palestinian mental health specialists have said Gazans are suffering a volcano of psychological trauma, with large numbers now seeking treatment and children suffering symptoms such as night terrors and the inability to focus. Yeah. Guess what that was to us? POW slavery. That's what we went through. So they mass imported it to everybody else. You see what I'm saying? That's the problem. When you don't step in and do nothing, it becomes a problem. And so they've been psychologically trying to get us on that too. You understand? They've been psychologically trying to get us on that by promoting all of this homosexuality, right? Promoting all of this lasciviousness and sexual innuendo in the music and all of that. By getting all of these rappers to put on fingernail polish and all of that. All of that is Mossad tactics. All of that is CIA tactics. Mossad was so dirty that CIA, when they would come to them for meetings and stuff and debriefings, they couldn't meet at Langley. They would have to meet them niggas like miles away from Langley because they was notorious for giving them gifts with bugs and shit in it. But these supposed to be your allies. How are these your allies when they are the ones not only killing you, but setting you up to get killed and all types of stuff? You know how many people these people have killed? The Israeli government, and how many Americans the Israeli government has allowed to die, has set up to get killed? More than you and I would even know. Just start with 9/11. And didn't I tell you that nigga Saperstein just bought the U.S. Bank building in L.A.? Come on now. The same building that we seen got blown up in Independence Day? Come on now. They setting you up. Andre 3000 was one of the first niggas I seen in a dress in modern hip-hop that I remember. But we just pass it off like, oh, he weird. Oh, he oh, he weird and all that. Now, I'm not saying that he's IDF or down with that. What I'm saying is he's in the music industry. And who runs the music industry? Who owns the music industry? Do any so-called blacks own the music industry? Do any of them? And when they did have a chance to own it and run it, what did they do? They destroyed each other and then sold everything back to the same people who was enslaving them. When these niggas had the ability to have their own contracts, their own labels, did they give the people who they was signing and coming up under them any better deals than they was getting from the small hats that was signing them up? No. No, they gave them worse deals. They signed them up even more. Yeah, with CeeLo Green and Danger Mouse when they dressed up as the husband and the wife. Remember that? Y'all remember that? This is CeeLo Green. This is the one who was one of the most conscious so-called rappers out there, right? Remember him? Remember that? No. What are these niggas? And that's what they do. That's how they break you morally. That's how they break your morals down. They get somebody who you know is supposed to be who's promoting some sort of consciousness to you, right? Some sort of awareness, some sort of black power, some bullshit, right? These the niggas that they get most of all to flip it on you, to make you think that they there, to make you think that they down with the cause and they trying to bring up strong so-called black masculinity and this and that. No, those be the main ones that they get. Because the whole idea is to break down morally the man, because the man is the linchpin of the society. If we can get the man, right, we can get the man to be strong in this instance, but then be a woman in this instance, right? Then what do we get? We are now able to distort, right, the mind frame and the perception of masculinity, right? We can now play with it because strong men create strong societies, and we do not want a strong society. We want a society in which everybody can be compromised. You understand? That's what's important. That's how we maintain control. And most of all, we have to get the actual essence of masculinity, which is the original man. Why you think Georgia is the way that it is? We didn't do that. We didn't turn it into that. But they used the strip culture. They broke everybody down morally. And all of this started after Dr. York and them got taken out. This is all Hegelian dialectic. All of this. This is all a form of MK Ultra mind control, disassociating disorder. Because the first thing a hetero man look at this and say, oh, I'm done with this nigga. And what do? We literally cut these niggas off in our minds. We don't even look at them as men anymore, which means what? We dehumanize them now. You see how it works? Because we don't even see these niggas as real men, regardless to what they talking or whatever. Whenever he come on, I'm turned off. So that means a whole section of our society within our own microcosm of the so-called melanated community, we automatically disassociate ourselves from these niggas. Which means what? They're isolated. Which means what? They can't come around no real niggas no more, because a real nigga gonna be like, what the hell you wore a dress for, nigga? Right? What the hell you kissing a man for, nigga? Like this type of stuff. So then what happens? That stops them from wanting to be around us as well. Which means what? They're now more susceptible and more inclined to be around the enemy. Now they're supporting the enemy because at least the enemy is using them for something. And it's not isolating them. You see what I'm saying? It's a tactic. It's a tactic, yo. So these philosophies that these people are dealing with and coming into, again, are coming from different aspects of different philosophers. So there was a philosopher named Bentham, okay? And Bentham created an understanding of something he referred to as hedonic calculus. We were supposed to learn about all of this stuff in school, but they never taught us none of this. So we had to find out about these niggas later. But whether you know about hedonic calculus or not, you've been a party to it and have been living in it and aspects of it from the time that you was born. Okay? That's how deep entrenched it is in your life, with you not even understanding or knowing what it is. All right? So hedonic calculus, what is it? This is just one. We're going to kind of run through them so that we can get all of them in line. All right. Okay. So let me pull it up real quick. Hedonic from hedon or hedonism, which is a sexual depravity or the need of relaxed morals. Right. So hedonic calculus is a method developed by Jeremy Bentham to measure the amount of pleasure or pain an action produces, aiming to identify the act that creates the greatest overall happiness. It assesses actions based on several components: intensity, duration, certainty, propinquity, which is nearness, fecundity, purity, and extent, to guide moral decision making, especially in legislation. So especially in legislation is where this comes in, meaning how it is that the people who exist in the fictitious legalese paper empire exist. The calculus helps calculate the net utility of an action, determining the best action, that which maximizes the pleasure and minimizes pain. So what they're saying is most human beings, right? Most men or women who have been transferred into human beings would rather exist in a state of pleasure than pain. And therefore, they will go further into something pleasurable than something that would give them pain, which also translates to, if you are given a circumstance by which you have to work harder at something, right? And it's going to cause you more intensified labor, or takes you longer than something that will actually take shorter, right? But then give you a greater outcome with less pain, you'll do that. So what this translates to is, hey, you can get this record deal, but if you want to become a mega star, you need to sleep with this producer. You need to do this. You need to wear this dress. You need to do that. In regards to what you do after that, you're going to be guaranteed a certain amount of success, more than you not signing this deal to do that, and then having to grind and be an independent artist and then do all of the stuff that you got to do yourself. You understand? The difference between being a signed artist and being an independent, basically, if we were to reduce it, right? Application and example. To apply calculus, one calculates the total pleasure and pain for every individual affected by an action, then sums these to determine the total utility score. This process is repeated for all alternatives to choose the best option. Example, choosing between working out, short-term pain, or long-term pleasure, versus eating junk food, short-term pleasure, long-term pain. See, working out to get muscles, or going and get an ab etching, right? Working, doing squats to get a bigger ass, as opposed to going and getting cut up to get a BBL. So do you see where we are as a people? Do you see where we are? Do you see how many people are choosing the short term pain, right, for the short term pleasure for the long term pain? You see what's happening, right? Quantification problems. It is challenging, if not impossible, to assign numerical values to subjective feelings like the intensity or duration of pleasure. So what do? you start to engender the population to believe that the short-term pleasure is better than the long-term gain. So you make a couple of people believe that the system is working. So these people try to go to court, do what they need to do. They're getting beat up. Then all of a sudden, somebody comes through and actually is successful. Does that mean that everybody that worked hard and was getting beat down was not successful in their application? No. It just means that the system has to create a circumstance by which you believe that even though you know it's not fair, that it can be fair under certain circumstances. You understand? This is how we've been trained. This is how we've been trained. We are Pavlovian dogs. This is how they make you believe that there is something fair in a system that you know is not fair. Because if everybody went to the system and everybody was failing, then what would happen? The system would collapse because everybody would not have any faith in it. But if Oprah can become a millionaire, maybe I can become a millionaire. If Beyonce can become a millionaire, maybe I could become a millionaire. Do you see? It's not true because these people didn't get there because of their merit. These people don't even write their songs. They don't even choreograph their own music. They don't even choreograph their own dances. They don't film their own videos. They don't do anything. Somebody comes and does all of that for them. They just show up and act as marionettes and do whatever they're told. And you believe that that's hard work. You believe that the system is actually working. But it's not. This is all based, again, on what? On Bentham's understanding of hedonic calculus. How to calculate what level of hedonism you will subject yourself to in order for you to receive some sort of pleasure. That is what you deal with and have been dealing with since you've been born. What does our mother say? Do the dishes. If you don't do the dishes, what happened? No TV. See? I want TV, so I have to do the dishes. Do you understand? This is how it works. This is how they're able to maintain a society that itself does not exist. You understand? It doesn't exist. What exists is our participation in it. Criteria, duration. How long will it last? How long is the pleasure going to last? Well, if it's weed, you could be high for an hour, 2 hours. If it's cocaine, it might be 4 hours. If it's methadone, if it's meth, it could be 8 hours, right? But then the crash is crazy. The intensity. How intense is the high? Well, this one got 80 THC, but this one got 120 THC. So what are you saying? You're saying, well, I want the one that's going to give me the most pleasure out of this 1L that I could get rather than smoking just one and being cool with the high I get. I want to get so high that I don't have to get high again for a little while. You understand? This is how we've been raising our children. This is how our community has been raised since integration. Propinquity. How near or remote is it? How far is the weed spot? How long is it going to take me to get there? You understand? You understand? How far is the dispensary? Extent. How widely does it cover? Will I be able to smoke this and be able to be high for a longer amount of time? Certainty. What's the probability of the high that I'm going to get? Purity. How pure is the cocaine? And how much of it is cut with fentanyl? So I know how much of my life I'm endangering in this pursuit. Do you understand? Fecundity. Does it actually lead to further pleasure? Is this going to be so good that I'm going to want more of it? So again, let's put this in war. How duration? How long will the war last? Donnie? I don't know. For as long as it takes, right? Intensity. Is it a ground war? Is it a missile war? It depends. It's going to be intense in certain instances, but I can't really tell you. The propinquity.
How near and remote is it? Are they going to be able to launch missiles against us? No, they're not going to be able to do that because we took out their ICBMs, right? Boom, the extent. How widely will this cover? Well, it's only gonna involve Iran and Israel. But now look, the UAE is affected. Qatar is affected. All of these other countries is affected now. You see? You see how they use the hedonic calculus against the Arab states? So I'm showing you this in actual real time, how this is playing out. And that's just one. That's just the hedonic calculus, right? Let's look at this. So again, I'm showing you how these philosophies have garnered everything into a perpetual fiction, and how they got people living the philosophies of these men, right, who you don't even know. And you are living out their theories in real life. I mentioned I mentioned the Hegelian dialectic, right? What is that? How does that affect? Hegelian dialectic is a philosophical method with concepts or historical situations, which is thesis, which is something not real, because history is made up, develop internal contradictions, antithesis, negation, which are then resolved in a higher, more comprehensive form of synthesis and sublation. Driven by this conflict, through thought and history move forward in a process of perpetual change. 3 moments. Hegel described it as abstract, which is the stable concept, which is this war is not going to take a long time. The dialectical, the negative, contradictory. Well, how can it not take a long time if we're expending so much energy to make it happen? And the speculative, which is the positive, concrete synthesis. Well, it's not going to take as long as we think, but it's going to take as long as it needs to. Do you understand? Self-subulation. Hegel views that this process where concept becomes its own opposite through internal dynamics. That's what they've been flipping on us. Problem, reaction, solution. Right? This is how it's been working. What's the problem? Iran. What's the solution? Bombing. Right? Excuse me. What's the reaction? Bombing. What's the solution? War. Agenda. Centralization of power. That's what the Pax Judaica wants. They want to centralize their power. What is the thesis? Which is a manufactured terrorist threat. Right? Which is what? Iran is developing nuclear weapons. Is it? Does it matter? Especially if nukes is fake. What does it really matter if nuclear bombs is fake? When have you in your whole life seen a nuclear bomb? When Chernobyl melted down, which was a nuclear reactor, it melted down. Did it blow up? Did it blow up? Anybody? No, it didn't. It caused radiation. How did they stop the radiation? They didn't. What is Chernobyl now? It's a paradise. Animals is living in the radiation. Trees done propped up everywhere. You know what the number one killer of radiation is? Hemp. Plant hemp. Hemp sucks the radiation literally out of the soil itself and turns it into weed. You understand what's going on? Do you understand? It's a scam. It's all a scam based on this. Manufactured terrorist threat, antithesis, repressive police state. That's what they're trying to do here, right? They're trying to turn this place into the blue state of Israel. By what? By trying to make laws to say you can criticize everybody else. You could diss Muslims, you could diss Christians, you could diss everybody else except these chosen people over here, who's getting all of the welfare money, who's getting all of the arms money, who has a way to disseminate their food so that way they don't eat the goy slop that we eat. That's preferential treatment. That's against the very core concept of what America is. Because this is not America. This is the United States. Synthesis, the removal of freedoms, the transfer of power from the many to the few. That's what they're going through in New York right now. They hired a communist mayor. The commie, liberal, white establishment with their black lackeys voted for a communist. And what do communists believe? They believe that they should take what everybody else have and give it to the people who don't have. So the only people in New York that's actually going to be successful is the people who are totally dependent on the government. And those people do not work. They do not have any upward mobility because they are all caught up in the hedonic calculus, which is what? Whatever the least I can do to get the most out of it. That's the basis of communism. And then they just came out and found out that his wife is a major racist. She is a staunch racist. She hates niggas. Right? And this is who y'all voted for. Everybody in New York who voted for that person deserve a slap in the face. Because New York is basically going to become a slave state. It's going to become worse than LA. It's going to be worse than California. It's going to be worse. Because then they're going to reduce the police. So this way the people can start to prey on themselves. Meanwhile, this nigga Mandami is a millionaire. He not giving up any of his money because that's how communists do. Not a fixed master-slave dialectic, the famous example of the phenomenology of the spirit, where the struggle for recognition between individuals drives historical progress. Ain't that what's happening right now? They got this individual saying that they're chosen and they're better than every other individual, and every other individual needs to be their slave. Master-slave dialectic, right? Not a fixed formula. While often simplified as thesis, antithesis, synthesis, Hegel rarely used these terms, emphasizing instead that the dialectic is a concrete, non-formulaic process intrinsic to the subject matter. What is subject matter? Subject matter, always what usually follows after that? Jurisdiction, right? So that Hegelian dialectic is then entrained into the legislative body that you and I are often forced to deal with, which again is dealing in an artificial kingdom, which does not exist. So when we talk about constitutional law, natural law, common law, right? Statutory law, admiralty law, all of these different laws, none of them exist. Are we ready to get to that level of the game? The reason why we declare our nationality and do things like that is to create a delineation between us and the fiction. The only problem is we are all also still adjacent to the fiction when that happens. Are we ready to deal with that? The Moorish Empire itself was established as a means so that way it would not have to deal with any of that. That's why most of the treaties and the things that you read were external. They were given outward. We were never supposed to apply that inward to ourselves outside of the basic principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, and equality. We were meant to create hedges around us that would protect us from having to deal in the artificial world. That's what the whole thing was to begin with. That's what made the Moors so superior to everybody else in the world. Because we found a way to deal with the fiction without being a part of it. So when we deal with constitutional law, when we deal with common law, when we deal with any of these laws, we are still dealing with laws that are fictional. That's why they could be usurped. Because the truest law comes from within, comes from the divine temple that exists within our heart, which is the arm, leg, arm, head, which has no paperwork attached to it, which has no identity outside of the arm, leg, arm, head associated with it. But I told you last week when we went through the process of how all of these religions became statutory jurisdictions, how that happened. When the whole idea was for us to break away from all of it. But how can we do that if we are still staunchly in it? And this is the quagmire that we find ourselves in when we get to a certain degree of understanding. To overstand that in the end, everything that they tell us not only is not a contract, it is a claim. They are claiming to have jurisdiction. They are claiming to be the United States. They are claiming that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. They are claiming that they are United States citizens. They are claiming that they are persons. But that's not what they are. They are artifices. An artifice is something that was created. You understand? So we are striving to get beyond the artifice. And that's where we find ourselves now. Because the true artifice around us is collapsing every day, bit by bit, every day. This is why people feel they can't do nothing. You understand? This is why people feel that they're trapped. Because essentially they are. Because once you identify as the person, once you identify as the this, as the that, and you don't challenge the claim of where these things actually derive and come from, where the jurisdiction of them ends and you begin, this is where the problem comes in. Because no one has articulated that enough for us to be able to stand under the divine aspect of what that really means and what that really is. You understand what I'm saying? So yes, we can understand how the law works and this and that and all of that. And I'm not saying we shouldn't, but what I am saying is that none of these laws is based on law. A law is you go outside, you get wet. A law is you go outside in the sun and you stay out in the sun, you either get burned or you get a tan. A law is you fall down, you have to get up. These are immutable things that cannot be changed. A law is you go outside in the rain, you get wet, even with an umbrella. You understand the difference? So what happened was these dirty people, whether they be Moors, whether they be Indians, whether they be Black Europeans, whatever, they created a way to get people to participate in the fictitious kingdom. You understand? They got them to participate in the fictitious kingdom. So we went from I self law and master to bowing to an invisible master that we'll call Islam. You understand? They took what you naturally are and created a religion on it. Yahweh don't mean God. Yahweh mean he hand, he nail. That's what Yahweh means. And it's not even Yahweh. It's Yad-He, Wad-He. Because remember, there was no vowels. So Yahweh can't be the God y'all saying because that's not even its name. You understand? Let's go to Nietzsche. Every Caucasian that goes through political science gets infatuated with Nietzsche at some point, if you didn't know. Every philosophy major eventually winds up when you go to college campuses and shit, you're gonna see at least one of these crazy niggas walking around with Nietzsche on his shirt. First of all, Nietzsche was in love with his sister. Okay? So for you to base your entire philosophy on this nigga is crazy. Okay? But let's what he says. Nietzsche, again, a German, see? Small hat, German cultural critic known for radical critiques and traditional morality. He's most famous for saying that God is dead. He didn't really say that, but That's what the summation of what he was saying. So let's just run through it. The key concepts was: one, the death of God. This indicates the decline of absolute religious-based authority. See? In modern society, necessitating a new way of creating meaning described in his teachings. So the death of God was the death of what I'm talking to you about. The true invisible kingdom that we are really actually in. The true world by which we are governed by all seven senses, by which we see past the veil and actually are God. Not the God, but the God as represented by us as its manifestation, by which we need nothing else. We infringe on no man, and no man infringes on us. That God, that world has been veiled to you after the last reset. He wanted you to understand the Ubermensch, which is the Superman or the Overman or the Overhuman, the ideal future human who creates their own values and rises above the conventional herd-like morality, a concept often analyzed in the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy and mentioned in the studies. Boom. Will to power, right? What did Crowley say? He said, do as thou wilt, right? In the book of the law, and that shall be the whole of the law, because Crowley was doing the knowledge to Nietzsche, because all of these niggas was a part of the same societies that were trying to promote the same fictitious paper empire that we have all been a part of and been subject to, based upon their warped philosophies of life, absent of I, self, law, and master, the true and living. He hand, he nail. You understand? The amor fati, the love of fate, the mind state of embracing one's life, including suffering as a necessary and beautiful. What is that? That is the basis of Buddhism. You see how all of this is a gumbo, is a garbage can full of all of these different philosophies spouted out to you. So Nietzscheism is an adjective describing the philosophy and the follower of his thought. Existentialist, often considered the forerunner of existentialism, right? Because that's what Nietzscheism is. So Nietzsche's main idea is a center of overcoming the traditional morality and nihilism, life's meaninglessness through the will of power. That's why you can say, well, how do these niggas eat babies? How are they able to just rape children? How are they able to enslave whole countries? Because of this. This is how they're taught. This is the basis of Marxism. This is the basis of communism. This is the basis of feminism. All of the things that are besmirching your life right now. This is the pursuit of ultra capitalism in the negative deviant. To be the overman, to be over all of it, but not be subjectable or accountable to any of it. You can't do that and be an actual person, because morality comes from what? Mores being all. Because at one point, Moors were all. We were the benchmark. You understand? As to how society was functioning at the highest level. And when we fell, it all fell with us. But we didn't fall to no white man. We didn't fall to no philosophy. We fell to the lower nature within ourselves. And that lower nature became the basis of the philosophy that the lower beings, the beings that did not have a higher morality of function, were able to create a society out of the depths and the rubble that we left behind. A nihilistic person believes that life is without intrinsic meaning, purpose, or objective value. Rejecting traditional morals, knowledge, and beliefs are baseless. They often feel a sense of meaninglessness, that this manifests in different ways, from passive delusionment to actively embracing the void. That's Jeffrey. That's the Epstein class. That's all of these niggas that you're reading about in these files. That's everybody in government. That's everybody in Hollywood. You understand that nobody watched the Oscars? Nobody watched that shit? Yet and still they pumping it to you like everybody's involved, that we should be so happy that Sinners won, right? But all of them niggas are sinners. All of them niggas is down with it. All of them niggas is getting awards from people who eat babies. And we know it now. It's not even a fake thing. This is what we know they're doing. And yet we're going to sit there and clap for them? I'm supposed to be happy for this nigga? Because he went to In-N-Out Burger after? Did y'all know that the last album that this nigga Prodigy put out was called the Hegelian Dialectic? Did y'all know that? And on it, he put the Vitruvian Man on it. Y'all should go and listen to that album and see why they murked him by killing him symbolically with an egg when he didn't eat dairy. Because the egg represents the cosmic egg. And he was at the time exposing all of this fake Illuminati stuff. So boom, we went from Bentham. We went from Bentham to Hegel, to Nietzsche. Now we're going to go to Malthus. Okay? Thomas Malthus. To the Malthusian theory of population. All of these are the things that you and I and everybody else in this world since the last reset have been living through. And I'm showing and proving it. These are all the delusions of madmen who again took the essence of what we left behind and turned it into this nightmare, all based on legal fictions. Thomas Malthus is known for his influential theory on population outlined in the essay on the principles of population, which argued that population growth, geometrics, inevitably outstrips the food supply, see, arithmetic, leading to the famine, disease, and conflict, positive checks. See how he sees that as a positive? Unless checked by moral restraint, preventative checks. His ideas, known as Malthusian, influence economic, social policy, and even Darwin's theory of evolution. So do you see what I'm saying? All of these Freemasons created one fake idea and alley-ooped it to the other, and the other one took it and added, and the other one took it and added, and all of this became the basis of what you and I exist in today, which they refer to as Western civilization. This is a fact. This is why you never heard of none of this. This is why they never taught none of this in any. They don't teach none of this in the HSBCUs. None of this is taught in any black colleges. None of it. And if it is, they're not giving it to you like this. They trying to make it seem like this is some real shit that you're supposed to participate in, and you're supposed to get degrees in understanding how to break down. No, you're supposed to understand this so you know how to leave it alone. And know it when it's popping up in your everyday life, so you can get it away from you and stop thinking along these lines, because that's what has locked us in to this fictitious reality that created black people and everything around us. This is why niggas don't like being around niggas. This is why you go into certain places, and when you around certain people who look like you get antsy. But then you be around the actual enemy, people who actively have been working against you and don't feel that. That's a form of dissociative identity disorder. That is a fracturing of the self based upon Hegelian dialectic, hedonic calculus, Malthusian theory, population theory, and Nietzscheism with a degree of nihilism. That's what all of this is coming from. Right? So the only way to prevent the preventative checks to deal with Malthusian theory only is based The only way out is to deal with it from a preventive check. And the only preventive checks are what? Moralism, moral restraint, values, traditional family values, the very thing that they tell you that you're not supposed to deal with no more. Yes, segregation was the end of independent melanated thought. Darwinism and evolution. Charles Darwin, heavily influenced by Malthus's ideas of a struggle for existence, applying it to natural selection and the survival of the fittest. This is what the basis of modern war is. Economic thought. His work challenged the prevailing optimism and perpetual societal improvement and shaped debates on wages, poverty, and resource allocation. Do you see this? So they used him to get away from positive economics, with an increasing on the fact that if there's more people, there's going to be less resources. So if we kill more people, right, that means there'll be more resources. What is that? That is population control. Morals allow you to take a higher road when put in a circumstance of hedonic calculus. If I'm morally astute and this prostitute wants to give me free sex, right? And I'm going to have immediate pleasure for a long-term pain, right? My morals is going to stop me from having sex with that prostitute. Do you understand? If morals is there and I'm provided no other way to make money other than selling crack to my mother, I'm going to choose my morals and find another way to make money so I don't have to string my mother out on crack. Like I said, the more alls. That's the only way. So we stopped niggas from doing crack, where the crack numbers went low with the rap. So what did they do? They started to make us, enthrall us, and make us appreciate the drug dealer. So crack didn't work because of the fiends. So we're going to start to elevate the drug dealer and make him the hero. The same way we made the pimp the hero. The same way we made the killer the hero. So all of this is fake. Because Allah did not create a world by which you would not have enough. Mankind created a world by which you could not do that. Have you ever seen a seal buy a fish? Have you ever seen a whale pay for plankton? Have you ever seen a monkey buy a banana? No. Have you? No. No. Have you ever seen a fish buy a bottle of water? Never. Because nature, by its very aspect of being nature, provides for everybody. So these people who came out the cave, right, because they were created by a bunch of nihilistic black demons, right, created a circumstance by which you and I would now be subject to their depraved creations, these creatures of law who created a world by which now nobody could exist without paying for it. That's not the world that we lived in. That's not the world we actually live in. That's the world that was created, the prison that was created that they left us to break out of. Yes, Danielle, they made Nino Brown the hero when Nino Brown was a psychotic serial killer psychopath. Blade is the hero. Blade is a hero. Nino Brown was a demon, was a dirty Moor. That's how them Moors was. No one is going to teach you economics like this. Finally, we get to Hoyle. Hoyle was a little different. This is why they don't like Hoyle. Because Hoyle said, Sir Fred Hoyle's philosophy was categorized by a staunch belief in a steady state of the universe, no beginning or end. That ties back to the Circle 7. There never was a time when time began. For surely if there was a time, that time would end, and surely be a time that time would surely be a time that time began, and surely be a time that time would end. That is a closed loop. A staunch belief in a steady state universe, no beginning or end, and a radical non-Darwinian view of evolution. He promoted panspermia, that life on Earth originated from space. Now, when you put the dash, that's when they leaving the stuff out. Now, he may have thought space, like we talking about space out there, but the space he's talking about is the time before this reality, when we crash down into the third density. That's what I'm taking the space at. The true and living space, the inner space, right? The extraterrestrial space, right? Not meaning space outside of the firmament, because that's fake. The true and living space between celestial bodies, which is us. And argued that the complexity of life requires an underlying intelligent cosmic ordering and principle rather than a random chance. This is why they hated Hoyle. This is why you never hear about them talking about Hoyle. Because Hoyle was basically following aspects of what we would consider more as science. The steady state theory, he maintained that the universe has always existed and is constantly creating matter, famously coining the term the Big Bang. As a criticism of the rival theory, panspermia and cosmic life, together, he proposed the viruses and complex organic molecules are deposited on Earth by comets, driving evolution as detailed in the books The Evolution of Space, The Junkyard Tornado, Hoyle's Fallacy. Hoyle argued that the emergence of complex life from non-living matter is so improbable that it is comparable to a tornado sweeping through a junkyard and assembling a Boeing 747. And he's right. These niggas want you to believe that you evolved from some sort of monkey, right? But where the monkey come from? And from the monkey, you somehow went from a monkey to a man, right? When they're giving you their history in reverse. They want you to believe that you evolved from a tadpole into a monkey and all of these things, when they're taking out the fact that the sperm is the tadpole that's going through the extraterrestrial space, the inner space of the firmament, which itself is the embryonic sac and the whole process of life. And when you go through that process over the 9 billion years, i.e. 9-10 months that you're going through, that's why you start to look like almost every animal that exists on Earth, only to emerge as a living arm, arm being. That's in the Circle 7 when it says when Allah calls to all ye protoplasts. This is what it's referring to. But they don't like that, because then that would mean that there is a consciousness. And if there was a consciousness, that means what? There is some sort of moral understanding underlying and girdling the civilization that we are taught to believe just turned out from chance. So this is the stage by which life manifests itself into life. You understand? This is us from the penis sperm into the womb, creating the Big Bang, which they actually showed under a microscope, that once the actual sperm hits the egg, there was an explosion. That is the stellar nucleosynthesis that exists inside the womb, which then creates the dispersal elements of the interstellar medium, which then creates the molecular clouds, which then creates the black hole. That's the anus. That's the first thing to form, which then creates the prebiotic chemistry, which then creates the life that you exist and eventually emerge from. That is a cosmic, intelligent, natural design. That is not something that can be on paper. So what? These niggas came and took your birth certificate, put your little feet on the paper, and now what? They own you? No. That's a claim. That's another claim that don't exist unless you understand it exists. And if that's the case, then you say, okay, you believe that this certificate is this living being. Then show me and prove to me, if that's your claim, that this paper gave birth to this living being. Show and prove that. Just like when they say the state versus you in this and that. You go to the prosecutor and say, well, according to your law and your claim, everybody has a chance to meet their accuser. So I demand that you produce the actual state that is bringing this claim to me. They cannot do it because the state does not exist. It is a hedonic calculated fiction that is backed up by a Hegelian dialectic that is enforced with a Nietzsche-based nihilistic view in which God does not exist, which we know that that's not true, right? Which is the negation of the Hoyle doctrine. Do you understand what I'm saying? None of it can exist without you. So if we all stop participating, it would cease to exist. That is the rub, as the Shakespeare says, and that is the rub. That is the undiscovered country that he spoke about in Hamlet. That which cannot be immutably transformed into anything else other than itself. That negates all of the child sacrifice and everything that they have participated and forced us to participate in. Because none of it is based in truth. It is all based in fallacy. These are just some of the philosophies that they've been using against us, that they have actually, and we have actually made real by our participation in it. The Constitution, like we said, was established, but in order for them to be able to get it over, they had to get enough of us to agree that it could exist. And that is what the wars was about, trying to get us to circumvent our living blood, our living matter, right? And turn it into something that could be codified on paper. And then forced all of us that wasn't with it to be down with it or die. And a lot of us fought against it and actually died. And then some of us got to the point where in order to live, we had to create provisions in our own versions of it in order to stay away, and thus the Moorish Empire. Yet none of those laws that were applicable to us were applicable to anyone else, because amongst each other, we existed in a higher form of consciousness. And we only dictated to those who were away from us in those lower aspects of consciousness what and how they should live. But the more we did that, and the more we invested time with them, and the more we started to participate in them, a lot of us started to get the mind virus and started to believe that these things were real. And as we started to participate in them, we started to give love to them, life to them, and then saw them as an extension of us, the same way Victor Frankenstein saw the monster as a manifestation of his lower self and sought to destroy it once it got too powerful, and then was then haunted by it for the rest of his life. These are some of the joints I'm going to be putting on the app in the PDF section that you can read that basically get into all of this and how we was brought low by members of our own families who were the precursors and writers of some of these things that became the very philosophies that these people put into being. So all of these people who are believing in the devil and all of that, like Manley P. Hall birthday just passed. Manley P. Hall never joined a Masonic lodge in his life. This nigga never had anything to do with any of that. One day he read a book, and from there he unlocked so many keys to those books that he wound up creating the one of the greatest so-called books on all of the secret societies, all of them, to the point that they had that the grandmasters all over the world had to come and sit at his feet to learn what it was that they were actually practicing, because they had no idea that it was that deep. Just like Beethoven. You know what I'm saying? But it got to the point where once he accepted, what he didn't realize was they still was dealing with sacrifice and ball worship. So once he got to a certain degree and took that honorary degree, now he opened up himself to be down with them, right? And then once he got down with them, they was eventually able to get rid of him. And then to this day, everybody is still circulating his books and all of that. But he never went to no lodge, never went to none of that. But every so-called Freemason after him has been reading his books and trying to figure out how he was able to understand it all. But he didn't understand it enough not to accept a gift horse in the mouth, which was accepting an honorary degree from the very devils that he had civilized with what he gave them. And thus that became the hook in the bait that they could use, and the cosmic tie that they could use to eventually get him up out of here. The Department of Defense, which originally was the Department of War, when it was the Department of War, it was under the Republic. But after that, it became the Department of Defense. That's when they made the people the enemy, and then they started waging war against us ever since. Since then, they're about to change it back to the Department of War, which, by the way, they have just taken the Department of Education and have put that under the Department of Labor. Look it up. What does that mean? They're about to start trying to re-educate these white people and put them in the fields to start going to work. That's what it sounds like to me. They say black women, for instance, own more houses than everybody in the world, but they the most foreclosed on. So what difference does it make? This is what I'm saying. Again, Hegelian dialectic in your face. So if all of the military is functioning under devil worshippers who were baby eaters, this was the main baby eater who founded the Temple of Set, who used to go to orgies with Sammy Davis Jr. and Anton LaVey and Jane Mansfield and all of the other devils, right, who was all worshiping Aleister Crowley, drinking his sperm light capsules. These are the people who are basically running the war. But guess what? They done got rid of all of them people, and they got a whole new crop of these new ones, like Hexeth and these niggas, and they don't know nothing. So all of this is coming to a head. So what we have to start to do is separate ourselves from the aspect of this stuff that even exists. Because as the Republic exists, at the same time, it doesn't. As the Constitution is the highest law of the land, at the same time, it's not. It is if you're participating in that aspect of their version of the paper empire. And that's what nobody is telling us. That the highest understanding is the genetics that exists within us. That's the highest form of law that exists in all of the universe. And that we as man, by man I mean man, woman, and child, we are the law. We are all law. And that all law is mortal. You understand? And that mortal law, which is mortal, right, has a science that is based within our temple, because we exist, or it exists within our heart. So no building, no artifice, no nothing that they create, no piece of paper, nothing. All of those are claims. Once you start challenging the claims, that's when everything falls apart for them, because they can't substantiate their claims in reality. They do not own your child because they have a birth certificate. The certificate is not the child. The certificate is the United States citizen or the person. But if you do not exist or as a citizen in the United States, then that is not your child. That is a business under the IE of the 14th Amendment person that creates the entity of the United States that they're trying to bind you to with the claim. So unless they can produce a piece of paper that can give birth to an actual living blood human, their claim is false. Are we ready to start dealing with this level of law? Genetic law. So think about it. In nature, whenever you see an animal with really bright, elaborate colors, it's usually poisonous. That's why you see so many strippers and so many people in our community with red hair, pink hair, turquoise hair, yellow hair, green hair. They're poisonous. Because they are under this form of mind control, which is, again, dissociative identity disorder, because human beings do not have pink, green, blue, purple hair by nature. You understand? So once we start dealing with what is and what isn't, when we start dealing natural, like I said, natural law, constitutional law, admiralty law, common law, statutory law, all, law of war, all of these laws are fictions. None of them exist because they're all created by madmen who have long since dead. Darwin tried to create the Ubermensch by mating with the Galton family and this other family, and they have all extincted themselves. To wit, of everybody in the Epstein situation, right? Of everybody in that entire Epstein situation, the only person who has been convicted or is about to be convicted of something, right? The only person who looked like they're about to get prosecuted for it, you're going to love this, is this person. Is this person. Epstein cover-up probe includes ex-guard Tova Noel. Look at that name. Tova Noel. This don't even sound like a real name. This is probably an anagram for something. I just got to do the nouns to it. Tova Noel hit with criminal obstruction charges. After testimony before the Senate, Tova Noel was charged with criminal obstruction of justice in connection with the Epstein cover-up investigation. Following years-long inquiry, Congress concluded that a significant responsibility for failures surrounding the case rests with Noel. Do you see this? So you mean to tell me the only person that's going to go to jail with the Epstein thing is a so-called black woman? And y'all out here trying to protest and trying to do all this other shit? Where's Jasmine Crockett for this? Where's all of the black women in outrage behind this? After extensive testimony, witnesses, alleged co-conspirators, victim, where they at? The United States Senate concluded that Tova Noel was the only individual for whom charges warranted in connection with the Epstein-found investigation. She has been charged with criminal conspiracy, obstruction of justice, sex trafficking offenses, despite emerging late in the evidentiary process. Now you tell me, who is the sacrificial lamb for this? Who is the scapegoat for this? They got these people on on email lists talking about how many babies they was eating, how many people they was raping and torturing and hunting and all of this. And you mean to tell me this the only person y'all niggas gonna lock up? Nah. And like I said, where is all of the so-called melanated black women and in office and everywhere else trying to stand up for this sister? Nowhere. Because Jasmine Crockett and every other black woman, bald-headed Presley and all of the rest of them, they was right there. And they voted to keep all of their sexual misconduct criminal charges that they all walking around with ankle monitors and shit on right now, agreed to keep all of those things secret. So when I tell you that all of these devils, black, white, red, brown, that all of them are guilty and all of them are going to have to pay, I know what I'm talking about. And we have the power to do it. Remember them fake Black Panthers that was out here? Where they at now? When the last time you heard about them? You haven't. Because we shut that down. We went so hard on them niggas on the internet that there would be no way that people would be able to take them niggas seriously. And they haven't. It's over. They don't get no burn at all. They done. They had to change their name to the Black Cats or the brown brown Maine Coons or whatever. They out of here. So we could do that for them niggas. Imagine what we can do if we just stop participating in all of this foolishness that they keep trying to get us a part of. Anybody else have any questions? Ain't that crazy? Where's the social media on that? Where's the black women? Where's the feminist black women with this? How come ain't nobody talking about this? The one melanated woman who working, she gonna be the scapegoat for these niggas. When they got these niggas on tape eating people. It's insane. It's literally insane. I hate when I do that. Anybody have any questions? Yeah, the Nebraska fires are just like the fires are just like the fires in Argentina. That's them trying to get a new place to go to. That's them. Remember, they got to franchise Israel now. They got to turn it and try to find another place to go because it's over for them. They're about to turn Israel into Gaza. That's going to be Gaza in like another 2-3 years. And them people that live underground, they're going to have to stay there because they are literally bombing them every day. They're being bombed out. The same thing that they was doing to them people is the same thing they doing to them now. And they are literally bombing them to the Stone Age. And it's moving ever closer to the Dome of the Rock. So that's how you know it's pretty much a rizzy for them. Once the Dome of the Rock gets hit, they done closed down the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where the Moors was protecting the body of Yeshua, allegedly. And now they about to set up the when that get hit, that's gonna be over. That's gonna be the last straw. And they're gonna try to move it. They're gonna try to build it up while they still being bombed. And they're gonna use the other nations. That's why there's a bunch of nations right now that have put a ixnay on any Israelis coming into their country. So it's pretty much a rizzy. And like I said, as the prophets say, it's going to come right back in the hands of the Asiatic, but this time we're going to rule with love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, and equality. Yeah, the wall gonna get bombed because the wall is a Russian wall anyway. That's the that's the wall built by Antonius. That's not even the part of the actual temple. Because the actual real temple probably never even really existed like that. Because remember, all of the original Jerusalem and all that stuff actually is over here. Everything over there is a fiction, a recreation based on the colonization that we extended when we went and civilized everybody after the last Younger Dryas coming out of that. For more on that, you can get the book Algonquin Conquest of the Mediterranean in the year 11,600 by Samuel Poe. Anybody else have any questions? Yeah, the Somalians is now trying to do the March on Selma, and they got all of the white immigrants and Latino immigrants backing them up because now they're trying to relive what we did, what our ancestors did in the 60s and 70s while they had their own country. Meanwhile, all of their countries is turned into straight shitholes and are now going to be extensions of colonialism. Because the United States then basically bought the right to take over Nigerians' health data for the next 25 years. So they're about to start sterilizing them. Kenya just allowed Israel to set up little communities out there. So they're going to start eating them. And everywhere else they go. The UAE states, all of those is about to collapse because they're not sustainable without the United States military bases. Yeah, those were all Disneyland states. Those was all Epcots. None of them things was meant to last. They can't really last like that because again, the Arabs that's running them, those were all terrorists created by the United States. The United States created ISIS, the Mujahideen, the Taliban, the Muslim Brotherhood, and everything else, and Hamas. Whenever the ISIS soldiers, that's why they never attacked Israel. Whenever the ISIS soldiers would get bombed up and shot up, they would take them to Israel to get patched up and put back out on the street. And now that Benny and the whole Israeli leadership is dead, the whole thing is running with is a snake with no head. No, Al Qaeda as well. Thank you, Addison. Yes, Al Qaeda as well. It's a snake with no head, and it's not a hydra. So, anybody else? Yeah, but yeah, they took Prodigy out because he started talking about the philosophies and how they led to the destruction of our civilization. Anybody else have any questions? Yeah, man. I'm telling you, we all we got. And all of this political infighting, all of these Moors banging on each other, it's like it's irrelevant at this point because everybody is arguing moot points. Yes, we're Moors and all of that, but we're spiritual beings having a human experience. We're Moors because we incarnated into these vessels that were remnants of the Moorish Empire, and we're supposed to preserve that. Yet at the same time, we are also from a higher reality that exists outside of all of that because we are the law itself. We are. So we have to act accordingly. We have to understand that, and we can't constantly be getting caught up in paper theatrics trying to prove to a fiction that we don't exist within it. That is maladapted at this point. We got to start looking at the big picture, which is what we talked about tonight. You know what I'm saying? So yes, declaring oneself and coming out of the jurisdiction of one thing to the other is great. However, once you're out of that jurisdiction, then what? Then what are we supposed to do? Right? How do we build a imperial understanding that exists without paperwork? Now that we define ourselves outside of what they say we are, how are we going to do that? We didn't get into this to fall under the jurisdiction of another man that looked like us. That's how we got into this in the first place, y'all. So any honorary title that I received, I never strive to use that as a means to control the might or the will of other men or women by holding them to something that I myself never created. Islam? How is that adaptable? How is that something that is right? We got into this to be free, not to fall under another man who looked like me jurisdiction, whether it be the prophet or anybody else, because he never wanted us to be the slaves to no other people, especially our own. That's why he said if we're not careful, the Moors will put you right back, your brother put you right back into slavery. That's why I only accept compensation for things that I myself produce and put out. You understand? Because that is the reciprocal energy. The time that it's taking me to produce and to understand and be able to convey in a manner that you yourself could then take and actually apply and do something with. That's where the power is. So yes, once you declare and you come out and you understand, okay, this is the jurisdiction of all of that. Now, boom. Now, how do we transcend that into the type of trust that allows me to only deal with claims that come from other fictions, instead of putting myself in a fiction and then answering a claim from their vantage point? That don't sit right. We have to elevate above that. That's why trust supersede all of that. But it's the type of trust that you set up, and it should be based upon your genetics and not your any physical things that you have to be manifested through the extension of the genetics that it took you to maintain and acquire them. You understand? That's where the true and living power is, because they can never create a claim that can supersede that, no matter what type of law they're coming at you with. So again, if you haven't, please check out my homepage, www.aseertheducateers.com. Here I have my two books so far that's on there. That's up there now. You can definitely check those out. The Dark Scope 418, the historical formation of Sultanate Mordecanos Estados and its empire, and what we were striving to do with that. Also, if you haven't, please check out. Hold up, let me see. Please check out the A. app. It's up there for you. Like I said, I'm gonna strive to get the other joints up there so you can check those out, as well as everything else that's up there. Also, please check out www.cordobaorganics.com. You know what I'm saying? For all your skincare needs and all of that. It's the only 100% natural joint on the market. You already seen that Beyonce mother was poisoning niggas. Was poisoning niggas at the event with the spiked gumbo, as well as the fact that Essence Fest, if y'all gonna boycott something, boycott that. Because they out there sending cease and desist to other so-called black businesses that was taking place and having their own events that happened to take place at the same day as Essence Fest, and was actually sending cease and desist letters to these businesses so that way they couldn't do nothing. Plus, Essence Fest was colonized by these dirty Africans who ain't played. And again, I'm not talking about all Africans. I'm talking about these dirty Africans that have been taking Essence Fest and was trying to create little cultural beefs by creating shit like Jollof versus Jambalaya and this type of bullshit, and trying to extend one over the other, and then take our cultural institution and all of our so-called melanated artists and then try to force us into all of this Afro beats and all this other stuff. So they've been hemorrhaging money because this has been happening. So if y'all gonna boycott white colonists, you need to start boycotting these melanated African colonists or Latin colonists or Chinese colonists, whatever colonists, communists that's been out here trying to take over our American culture and trying to turn it into something else, while at the same time disrespecting melanated sisters who got their own businesses. This was a bookstore too. one of the few bookstores that I've even heard about still existing, they had an event taking the same place as SFS. They sent them a cease and desist letter talking about how it was basically a non-compete clause that they wasn't even a party to. And then got the court, paid the court off to be able to execute it. So if they did it, they would go to jail. So thankfully, one of the congressmen came out and spoke against it and all of that. But this is what I'm saying about colorable law. When you got a bunch of colorable people doing statutory bullshit, this is why none of that is supposed to exist. We got to step away from all of it. You understand what I'm saying? Because that is what's destroying us. And these people do not care about us. They only want our money. They want to impersonate us. Like I said, the Minnesota Somalis, they turning themselves into trying to do a march on Selma and have all of these other immigrants talking about how what we did back then was for them. So you got all these other people dissing us while at the same time trying to impersonate us to get what we naturally is supposed to be ours. So when are we going to stand up and start boycotting and using the money that they're trying to milk out of us to stand up and tell them, no, go back to your country and fight for your people that you done abandoned and left behind to come over here and impersonate me? We ain't doing that to them. We can't go to their countries and do all of that. So don't come over here and thinking you can do that to me just because we happen to be similar in complexion. We are totally different. And again, I'm only speaking to the ones that's on it like that. So if you feel a certain way about it, then you the one I'm talking about. So long live the empire. Preconium alut laudibus. Happy true year to everybody. This has been really good. I hope it's been understanding. Please look into these different philosophies like I was talking about and start to get understanding of them enough to explain to your children and your people, so that way you can start calling it out when you see it on the news, when you hear Trump talking about it, when you see the small hats using it, when you see your own people exhibiting on you. Learn how to call it out when you see it. Because then what happens is the demon that's in them that's producing that type of rhetoric won't be able to exist around you. And you'll make your life a lot better and easier to exist through. You know what I'm saying? So again, thank you guys for the born physical birthday wishes. I really appreciate it. Thanks to my father, thanks to my mother for, getting together and having me and allowing me to, you know what I'm saying, be here. And again, honest to my queen and my children. I really wouldn't be able to do it without them. So again, man, we're gonna keep this moving, and inshallah, get together next week. So again, thank you guys for coming through to the Saturday night special. I really appreciate you, man. All right. Honest. Islam. Indeed. Magnum est imperium Mauritium.